Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Jonathan, and the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be here today. And I'm very delighted to be able to share with you some tips and some advice on how you can introduce solids to your baby. Okay, so I should have my slides on. So congratulations to you as you welcome your new baby to your family. So in this session, I will walk you through the different nutritional and feeding milestones in the first year of baby's life, which are broadly categorized as such. So milk only in the first 6 months, then followed by introduction of solids around 6 months, and then the progression of textures and introduction of finger foods from 8 months onwards, and the introduction of family meals after 12 months. So this information may be immediately relevant to some of you, but I'm also aware that some of you are in your pregnancy. So I hope that you will retain some of this information, which will become helpful to you as you prepare to welcome your baby. So in the first 6 months or so, babies will only require milk as sole source of nutrition, and breastfeeding provides all the nutrients for optimal growth and infant health. I'm sure you would have heard all about breastfeeding during the first webinar. And just to reiterate, the World Health Organization and Health Promotion Board recommend all babies to be exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months. Thereafter, infants should receive nutritionally adequate and age-appropriate complementary foods, while breastfeeding continues for up to 2 years of age and beyond. So you may have experienced this or may expect to experience this. Your baby may have been sleeping through the night previously, but recently started to wake up for milk feeds. This may be a growth spurt, or it could be that milk is no longer able to fully satisfy your baby. Typically between 4 and 6 months of age, if your baby starts to display some of these signs, then it could be time to introduce foods other than milk. So what are these signs? So these are the typical signs we look out for to determine if a baby may be ready for weaning. So the term weaning here refers to introducing solids. So the ability to hold head and have adequate neck control is important, together with the balance of sitting when supported for the safety of spoon feeding. So regular tummy time can facilitate the baby's development. Early immaturity of tongue's extrusion reflex of pushing the food out may often be misinterpreted as dislike of the food, but it should be highlighted that it is part of the baby's learning and should gradually disappear by about 6 months of age. Together with increased drooling and putting things into the mouth and an interest in food, these are the developmental signs of readiness. So I've included here a helpful resource which we created on SingHealth Health Exchange, which goes through the considerations for starting solids in terms of sitting, consistency, and preparation of early weaning foods, the types of spoon, as well as the spoon feeding technique, which you can view in your own time. Besides the developmental readiness, the timing of introduction is dependent on physiological readiness of baby. So as mentioned, between 4 and 6 months of age, the baby will develop necessary oral motor, gross motor skills to cope with spoon feeding. By around 4 months, the digestive and renal functions would mature to manage complementary or what we call solid foods. By about 6 months, the intrinsic nutrient stores, particularly of iron, starts to be depleted and will require supplementation from other foods. Please take note for premature babies, remember to follow their corrected age, which means that you will have to add on the weeks of gestation that the baby is born earlier than the expected due date. So in our local study, we found that infant rice cereal was the most common first food. Infant cereals are convenient as it simply requires either addition of milk or water in preparation. However, it can be boring if the baby is always fed the same type of cereals. So nowadays, parents are spoiled for choices on the variety of infant cereals available. So you can have a walk down the supermarket aisle or do a search online, and you will be able to find many different types of cereals that are available. So most cereals are usually fortified, which have its nutritional benefits, but also some concerns. So you may want to check the ingredients list. So here are several different brands of infant cereals, and you can see that there is much variability in the ingredients list. So you may want to look out for ingredients that state iron and vitamin fortification, which are commonly denoted as iron or ferrous. And you may want to avoid other ingredients like sugar or maltodextrin. So other common first food can include starchy vegetables like potatoes or sweet potatoes, which are steamed or boiled and then blended, or naturally soft fruits such as avocado and banana, which can be blended when ripened. So at the beginning, you may need blender such as this shown here, or you can simply use a mash and sieve. Please note that the puree period or the blended stage is quite short, so it may not be necessary to invest in a very expensive blender at this stage. So even a simple mash and sieve may work well. So it is necessary to introduce iron-rich foods for infants due to the depleting iron stores, as I mentioned earlier, and iron is an important requirement for growth and development. So iron-rich foods can be divided into two groups. So here we have the heme iron, which are mainly present in animal foods such as red meats, chicken, liver, salmon, and egg. And it's in a form that is most easily absorbable by the body. However, there are also non-heme iron found in plant foods such as tofu, beans and lentils, brown rice, oats, green vegetables like spinach and broccoli, raisins, and peanut butter. So these foods may not be as well absorbed in terms of the iron, so it is important to pair with vitamin C rich vegetables and fruits to increase the absorption from these non-heme sources. Meat has been found to be feasible as a first food to be introduced as well. So as meat is a very good source of iron as well as zinc, so it is encouraged that it can be introduced. So meat can be prepared in soup or baked or cooked in porridge and then blended into the correct consistency and texture required based on the different stage of the baby's weaning. Okay? Or you can bake together with starchy vegetables like potatoes or pumpkins and then blend it together. So preparing meals will require some planning and also may take up time. So you may be worried about having no time to prepare and would like to go for commercial baby foods. Yet, you are concerned about whether they will be good enough. So are there any differences between home cooked and commercial baby jars? So let's have a look. So for homemade baby meals, you will know the exact ingredients you have used, and you can also mix and match different ingredients in your own combinations. You will be able to introduce your baby early on to your family favorite foods depending on your marketing list for the family. And most likely, you will also prepare your baby meals in local flavors. You will have control over the consistency and texture as you prepare your own baby meals based on how long you cook and how much you blend. So on the other hand, baby jars obviously are convenient and you do not need to buy any special equipment for blending. However, the flavors in the baby jar may be quite standard combinations, which more or less may taste quite similar, and besides, they are mostly based on a Western palate. The baby jars come in pre-made set stages of texture, which you may not be able to adjust easily. An advantage of baby jar foods is the high food safety and hygiene standards during the production. Nevertheless, they will still be prone to food safety lapse in your homes. Hence, regardless of homemade or commercial baby jars, you will need to observe general food safety and hygiene rules in your home environment when you prepare and feed your baby. So you can use a combination of homemade and baby jar meals depending on how much time you will have to prepare these meals for your baby. So you can also consider preparing bulk when you're available. So here are some food safety rules to remember. So make sure to keep clean, meaning to wash your hands, clean the work surfaces and kitchen, wash the fruits and vegetables well, and to keep raw meat separate and wash your hands after handling raw food. Okay? And then secondly, to cool foods fast and do not leave your food to sit out for more than an hour. You can put them in the fridge or freezer as soon as possible. However, putting hot foods directly into the fridge or freezer may not cool foods fast and also may increase the temperature in your fridge or freezer and affect the other foods inside. Always portion the foods out first. So portion the food if you know that you have already cooked too much, and do not keep the leftover if you have already fed your baby from the same bowl. Food in the fridge can be kept for up to 2 days, 1 day if there is meat, fish, or egg content, and food in the freezer can last up to 1 month. Remember to label with dates and keep in airtight containers or Ziploc bags. In terms of defrosting the food, defrost in the fridge and use within 24 hours. Once defrosted, do not refreeze the food. Therefore, try to portion in baby-friendly portions before freezing. For reheating foods, you can either reheat on the stove or in the microwave, but make sure to stir well to avoid any hot spots if microwaving. And if reheat from frozen, remember to keep stirring to ensure there is even reheating. While there is no fixed order for food introduction, it is important to progress the textures appropriately through the different stages as shown here. So typically, the first stage is a smooth puree, followed by stage 2, which is lumpy, and then move on to chopped up foods. So just sharing some research insights. A large population-based study in the UK concluded that there is a sensitive period for the introduction of lumpy textured foods, and that occurs between 8 and 10 months. So this means that children who were introduced to lumpy foods after 10 months of age were more likely to report picky eating at 15 months, which refers to having fewer food types and variety in their diet, and they had more definite likes and dislikes. When the survey was repeated at about 7 years, the children were reportedly having feeding difficulties at 7 years. And this means that they were not eating sufficient amounts. They were choosy with their food, they refused to eat foods, and they had fewer portions of vegetables and fruits. Okay, so the typical age range for the stages are as follows. Okay, I'm sorry, just give me. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Okay, so the typical age range would be as follows: 4 to 6 months. You can see that it is a smooth puree, and then 8 to 10 months, there'll be a bit of texture, and then 10 to 12 months, it would be highly textured, which would be similar to family meals. So some babies may progress faster, some may progress slower. So the stage and pace is determined by each baby. Okay, let's look closer at each stage in terms of the preparation and variety. So the first stage is a smooth texture, runny consistency, just slightly thicker than milk, and it's like a milkshake, where the puree will flow from the spoon when you scoop. As your baby gets used to and accepts spoon feeding, you can increase the thickness of the smooth puree to be similar to yogurt consistency, and subsequently where it will hold its shape on the spoon. So if you start early around 4 months, you may stay longer in the runny smooth puree stage to let your baby get used to it. And if you start around 6 months, you may progress faster in thickness as soon as your baby can manage it well. So important to experiment with different combinations, and you can also add purees to flavor the cereals so that it is not so boring for your baby. So this is a typical 3-hourly schedule. So when you first start solids, you can start with once a day, either before, after, or in between milk feeds. And the amount of solids is not important at the beginning, as the focus is on getting your baby used to spoon feeding. So you can try at breakfast, lunch, or dinner timing, whichever would work for you and your baby's schedule. So in this example, if you introduce a meal at lunchtime, at the beginning, you may still need to follow with a milk feed 1 to 2 hours after, and then you adjust the subsequent milk timings accordingly, depending on your baby's cues. So as your baby is able to eat more solids, then you can gradually drop a milk feed. So as your baby improves in spoon feeding, then you can increase to 2 meals a day, and you may need to reduce the number of milk feeds as the amount and frequency of solids increases. Progressing to stage 2, which is the lumpy means food. So some examples of meals may include oatmeal with mashed soft fruits, mashed potatoes with mashed broccoli, or a lumpy rice porridge with minced meat and chopped vegetables. So you are encouraged to vary the types of fruits and vegetables and meat group each day as much as possible. And this is because in research, it has shown that besides a sensitive period for texture progression, it's recognized that there is also a sensitive period for developing a repertoire of food preferences before 12 months of age. So food acceptance is influenced by both the innate taste preferences and the baby's experience with food. So humans from birth tend to prefer sweet, salty, and umami tastes over those that are bitter or sour. So although we are influenced by our innate factors, they are also shaped by an individual's experience with food. So earlier we hear that babies can remember from very young age. So this implies that if the experience with the introduction of food is not pleasant, then it sets the stage that the baby may not enjoy the feeding or the eating experience. So every child has the potential to learn to enjoy eating, whether is it fruit and vegetables or other food, when they are given the opportunity to do so. So early exposure to vegetables has been encouraged, and this is so as to capitalize on the willingness of infants to try new foods such as vegetables, because early food preferences that are acquired can track into later childhood. So in practice, this means to first introduce your babies to a variety of different food, different vegetables, different fruits, and making sure to offer one or more different types on a daily basis. So continue to offer a new food as much as even up to 10 times or 15 times, even if the initial introduction was rejected, because it takes time for the baby to learn to accept new tastes. Offer variety repeatedly and try to build a rainbow of different vegetables, and to be guided by their willingness to eat rather than the facial expression of disgust or surprise. Because often when a baby gets into contact with a new taste, there will be an expression that may not actually seem to show that they enjoy the taste. Okay, up until about 9 to 12 months of age, infants are very willing and able to explore trying new foods. Okay, after this period, when children become independently mobile, they start to become more and more selective, selecting what they will eat and what they will not eat, resulting in reduced variety in their diet. So as shown in this graph, food neophobia, which refers to the fear of trying new things, will peak between 2 and 6 years of age. So this means that you should try to offer a wide variety of foods before 18 to 24 months. Okay, so before 10 months of age, you start to encourage self-feeding with finger foods, and typically you can start with this type of teething rusk around 6 months, 6 to 7 months. And this type of RASC is super hard and not really for nutritional and nutritional requirement. Okay, but it might help to soothe the gums, as it's also during this period that the baby may start teething. Okay, subsequently, you can move to this type of baby rice cracker, which are meltable, to teach the baby to bite off around 7 to 8 months. As it's a long shape, it will be easy for baby to grab and coordinate hand to mouth action. So as your baby develops in fine motor skills and the pincer skill, you can introduce baby puffs, which are also meltable. So this will train their fine motor skills. And once the biting and chewing motion matures, you can move on to harder baby biscuits, which are non-meltable, but still relatively easy to chew. Of course, there are also other types of finger foods that you can introduce, and you can prepare them from your daily groceries. Typically, finger foods are shaped like a finger so that it is easy for baby to hold and self-feed. So this food should be soft enough to be squished between your fingers. So examples can include boiled carrot sticks, apple rings or apple chunks, boiled chicken, boiled eggs, boiled or steamed broccoli, boiled pasta, boiled corn on the cob, rice that you can form into rice ball or even single rice grains, and roasted pumpkin. So you can also serve these finger foods alongside with the meals to encourage self-feeding and engagement with the baby during the meal times. So at around 8 to 10 months, this would be a typical feeding schedule. So as you increase from 1 to 2 and then subsequently to 3 meals, your baby's milk feeds will be replaced by the meals, and you can add a snack in between the meals. Okay, the snack could be any of the baby biscuits or finger foods as mentioned in the previous 2 slides. And we typically encourage that you introduce these meals around the same timing as the family. So breakfast time, lunch time, and dinner time, so as to set a routine for the baby as the baby grows. So some foods which are not suitable for infants below 1 year of age will include raw carrots or apple that are in big chunks, whole nuts, because these have a risk of choking. Do not add any salt and sugar, and do not offer any honey to the baby before 1 year. How about food allergens? So these are the top 8 most allergenic foods, which are wheat, tree nuts, cow's milk, egg, fish, soy, peanut, and shellfish. Okay. However, now we know that there is no evidence that delaying the introduction of these allergenic foods would reduce the risk of allergies, either for infants in the general population or for those with a family history. So they may be introduced when solids start anytime after 4 months of age. Okay. However, it's important to only introduce one common allergy-causing food at each meal and to observe for about 3 days for any possible reactions. So moving on to the 10 to 12 months of age, you can become more adventurous with the meal combinations. So you can serve your baby French toast and cut up strawberries, rice with tofu and chopped tomatoes, or even do egg fried rice with some minced chicken and having pasta with minced chicken. Of course, these are without the seasoning, the salt or addition of any flavors, except natural flavors. So you can portion out your family meals before adding all these salt and seasoning. And you can you can overcook them slightly so that it is softer, and you can cut it up into small chunks as your baby develops the chewing skills to manage harder foods. So portion out the food before you add the salt and seasonings, and overcook slightly and cut up into small chunks. Okay, so by about 10 to 12 months, the feeding schedule should resemble closely to the family meal times. So having an early milk feed followed by breakfast and a snack in mid-morning as needed, and then followed by lunch, and a milk and a snack in the mid-afternoon, followed by dinner and a bedtime milk. So some babies may sleep through the night at this point, but if your baby wakes up, then you can still offer the milk feed. So after 12 months, you are encouraged to provide family meals as well as have family meal times. So these were more likely to provide dietary variety as well as improve the energy and nutrient density of meals due to our mixed cooking methods, and also a chance for your baby to experience the family culture. It's important to set a routine for all meal and snacks and to make meal times similar to the family, which are adjusted about 2 to 3 hours apart and fitting in the milk feeds between the main meals. Okay. Milk feeds still remain an important aspect of the diet because it's important to supplement the daily energy protein intake as well as to ensure that the baby continues to receive adequate calcium intake. Meals are frequent because of the small stomach capacity as well as the short attention span. Therefore, it's important to provide small and frequent meals and feeding to the child. So home-cooked meals would obviously be the most ideal. However, if it's not always convenient to cook, it's still acceptable to buy takeaway food for your child after 12 months. So you need to pay more attention to what you select, and you can make healthy, balanced choices. So example, you can choose soup dishes, you can reduce the gravy or have no gravy from stores like the economic rice stall, and you can opt for child-friendly options like tofu, omelette, and chicken wing, which is easy for the baby to self-feed. Okay? And you can also move on to more adventurous family meals like having some fried rice or fried noodles, or having soto with the rice, and then even going for Japanese or Italian food like spaghetti and Indian food like dosa, and having pancakes and eggs for breakfast. Okay? So after 12 months, your aim is to have your baby enjoy your family meals. So the feeding schedule should follow your family meal times. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner with 1 to 2 snacks in between, and having 3 milk feeds a day. So the average milk intake after 12 months would typically be around 500 ml up to maximum of 750 ml per day. And your baby would probably sleep through the night without waking up for any night feeds. Okay. Lastly, I would like to end off with a note about responsive feeding. And responsive feeding is a way to promote healthy relationship with food and parent-child interaction and food experiences from the start. So parents need to learn to read the signs when your baby is hungry or full in order to make meal times pleasurable and less likely to become a battlefield. So feeding can be on demand initially, but as the baby grows older, towards around the time to introduce solids, it will be helpful to start to build a routine. So a regular feeding schedule makes it more likely that the baby will be hungry at meal times. So meaning when your baby is hungry, he or she may lean towards the food and open her mouth, gets excited when she sees the food, and focus and follow the food with his or her eyes. Okay? And when your baby is full, he or she may spit out or push the food away, may fidget or get distracted easily, may close his or her mouth when you offer food, may turn the head away from the food, and may start to play with the food. So a hungry baby will be an interested baby and will want to eat. So parents also need to understand that there may be variations in the appetite and allow for day-to-day fluctuations. So if there are concerns about adequacy of intake or growth issues, then you are encouraged to consult your healthcare professional for advice. Okay, so I've come to the end of my sharing.